A good evening on the 7th day of April, live from the capital in Nairobi, from the Kenyatta University Communication Center. This is KUTV Live Primetime News. Now we have a lot in store for you in matters happening in the country and beyond our borders, and mostly concerning the budget that was tabled in Parliament today. But first, the highlights. Treasury CS Kutosi tables the 2022-2023 budget proposals in Parliament. And still on the budget, Kenyans' concerns over the rising cost of living. President Kenyatta officially inaugurates the new KDF military hospital in Isiolo. The National Olympic Committee has officially opened the second edition of the Elite Youth Camp at the Kenyatta University Ruiru campus. Welcome to the broadcast, and my name is Emmanuel Kutosi, and in a sign language interpretation I'm joined by Vivian Wangeshi. Now we're also streaming this bulletin live on our social media channels. We are at KUTV Live Kenya on YouTube, KUTV_Kenya on Twitter, and also KUTV Live on Facebook. Feel free to intermingle with us on the social webs. Now, we begin with the story on the budget that was tabled today by Treasury CS Kutosi, where the Cabinet Secretary has today tabled the budget proposals for the financial year 2022-2023 in Parliament, and he has given special attention to health and agriculture as he seeks to address the economic challenges currently facing the country. Take a look.
Today marked a significant day for the Jubilee administration as Kutosi tabled on the floor of the House the budget proposals for the financial year 2022-2023, which is the last budget reading under Uhuru Kenyatta's government. Today's budget coming on the heel of hard economic times for majority of Kenyans, as inflation of prices of basic commodities keep on skyrocketing. As a response to the cries of poor Kenyans, Kutosi's 3.3 trillion budget has given special attention to agriculture. Huge bulk of the allocation in this sector going towards fertilizer subsidies and production of quality planting seeds to cushion farmers from high cost of production.
The government is implementing measures and interventions to achieve food and nutrition security for all Kenyans. These measures include supporting large-scale production of staple food, expanding irrigation schemes, increasing access to agricultural inputs, and supporting smallholder farmers to sustainably produce and market various commodities. To further support programs under this pillar, I propose an allocation of Kenya shilling for 46.7 billion in this budget.
The Uhuru's administration has also revamped the health sector by allocating increased funds for the purchase of key medical equipment and drugs as a proactive move to address emerging health challenges in the wake of the COVID-19 that nearly crippled the economy.
Mr. Speaker, to further enhance realization of the universal health coverage, I propose to allocate Kenya shilling 146.8 billion to the healthcare sector to support the various programs aimed at improving healthcare outcomes. Of this amount, Kenya shilling 62.3 billion will fund activities and programs for the attainment of universal health coverage. Specific allocation for various activities and programs include Kenya shilling 7 billion for purchase of COVID vaccines and related expenditure, Kenya shilling 4.1 billion for free maternity health care, Kenya shilling 5.2 billion for the managed equipment services, as well as Kenya shilling 1.8 billion to provide medical cover for the elderly and severely disabled persons in our society.
Another sector that has enjoyed a huge budget allocation is the education sector. The government giving it a priority with huge funds going towards addressing the CBC curriculum transition and general implementation of the program.
To further improve education outcomes, I propose a total of Kenya shilling 544.4 billion to support programs in the education sector. Mr. Speaker, out of the proposed allocation, Kenya shilling 12 billion will cater for free primary education, Kenya shilling 2.5 billion for recruitment of teachers, Kenya shilling 64.4 billion for free day secondary school education, including insurance under the NHI for secondary school students, Kenya shilling 5 billion for examination fees waiver for grade 6, class 8, and Form 4 candidates, and Kenya shilling 1.96 billion for the school feeding program.
Even as the government takes measures to address economic challenges, main concern remains on the 800 billion deficit in today's budget, which will force the next government to borrow beyond the national debt ceiling to run its affairs. The government, though, remaining bullish that the economy can still withstand the shock of additional borrowing.
Mr. Speaker, Kenya's debt carrying capacity is rated moderate and the overall public debt is sustainable. We have initiated implementation of a set of measures to lower cost and risk in the public debt portfolio. These measures include cancellation of some non-disbursing external loans, rearrangements of syndicated external loans, and increasing the issuance of treasury bonds to lengthen the maturity structure and improve debt sustainability indicators.
And as a huge chunk of the budget goes towards repayment of the ballooning national debt, key eyes will focus on the next government on how it will run the country without burdening the common mwananchi even further. Henry Tende, KUTV.
Thank you, Tende, for that report. And further in the broadcast, we'll be engaging in an interview with Catherine Asemate, Director of Internal and Audit Risk Assessment at the International, the ISPAC, Kenya. And we'll be talking much more concerning the budget that was actually presented today and the matters that may have been addressed, that those that may have not been addressed. We'll be looking more into that. Now, going forward, as the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani presented the budget for the financial year 2022-2023, Kenyans have expressed concerns over the high cost of living, and they are urging the government to prioritize reducing the cost of basic commodities to make life affordable in the next financial year.
A big day it was in the country as the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Ukur Yatani presented the budget for the next financial year 2022-2023. Kenyans paid attention to the allocations where education and national security got the biggest chunk of the 3.3 trillion shillings. CS Ukur Yatani assured the citizen that the 2022-2023 budget was so mwananchi friendly. The main concern of Kenyans, however, are the rising cost of living.
Wangeweza kuturudishia bei ya vyakula chini kama mafuta ya kupikia, sabuni na hata sukari. Kama ile bei yao ingekuwa chini na pia mafuta hii ya gari ikiwa chini, ingekuwa ni afadhali, ingekuwa ina favor sisi mwananchi.
Mambo ya chakula, mafuta ya kupika, unga ya kupigia, yote punguzwe. Sasa tunaomba serikali ipunguze hiyo vitu yote. Tena maisha iko juu. Nataka hiyo mambo ya VAT naye angaliwe punguzwe. Unaona?
The youths on the other side urge the government to focus on creating job opportunities and address the biting levels of unemployment to better their living standards in the next financial year.
Hata ukiangalia saa hii sisi tuko tupu nyumbani, ni vibarua tu tunangoja tu barua huku na huku, kazi hakuna. Sasa mimi nataka kama serikali itaweza, nataka tu kutafutia tu makazi, kitu kazi tuweze tupata kitu ya kujisaidia tu.
The heavy debt burden also crossed the minds of Kenyans who challenge the government to work within the tenable limits to avoid putting pressure on the next government.
Mimi naonelea wasikope zaidi nje. Tujaribu kutumia ile pesa ambayo tuko nayo sisi hapa. hiyo ndio naona itatupunguzia huu mzigo, lakini kama pia bado wataendelea kukopa, na tunaona wanasema wanakopa zaidi ya bilioni 3 zaidi, hiyo itaendelea kutufinyilia si kama mwananchi wa kawaida.
This being the largest ever budget in the country, Kenyans are in high hopes that the government will enact measures in the next financial year to better their lives and tame the high cost of living. Omondi Otieno, KUTV, Nairobi.
Omondi. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has today presided over the official inauguration of the new Kenya Defence Forces Isiolo Regional Hospital. The hospital is one of the 5 Level 4 military hospitals being developed across the country to address healthcare needs to the KDF personnel, their dependents, and the military veterans.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has today led the official inauguration of the new Kenya Defence Forces Isiolo Regional Hospital at Isiolo Barracks in Isiolo County. The hospital is expected to provide specialized services to KDF personnel, their dependents, and military veterans as one of the President's Big 4 agendas of universal health coverage.
Today we are witnessing the commissioning of the Kenya Defence Forces Isiolo Regional Hospital, and as we do so conveying a grateful nation's immense gratitude to you, our brave sons and daughters of Kenya, and your families for dutifully serving as members of our defense force.
It is one of the 5 Level 4 military hospitals being developed across the country to address healthcare needs to the KDF. With 105 bed capacity, the hospital will provide specialized services to retired soldiers in Isiolo County and northeastern Kenya, including Marsabit, Mandera and Wajir counties.
Kwa hivyo sisi tuseme tuko na furaha sana kuwa pamoja hapa, tukiwa tumekuja kufungua hii hospitali ya Isiolo. Hospitali ambaye itarahisisha utendaji ama huduma ya afya kwa wanajeshi wetu.
Other areas to benefit include neighboring counties of Meru and Samburu. The construction of the hospital, which began in February 2021, is fully equipped to offer accident and emergency services, ICU, HDU, renal care, and theatre operations. Other specialized services include maternity, radiology, physiotherapy, laboratory, mental health, and dental care.
This facility will contribute immensely to healthcare access, not only to the military, but also to the retired military personnel and families through Defense Forces Medical Insurance Scheme and other members of the security services through NHIF.
We are currently completing Eldoret Regional Hospital, and which Your Excellency you will be commissioning sometimes in June. And we are also very hopeful that the first unit of the Forces Referral Hospital will be commissioned also.
In addition, President Kenyatta's government is in the process of building more hospitals in the country, such as in Eldoret, Garissa and Manda Hospital in Lamu, which will also provide counseling services to ensure that health services reach out to all military officials who protect the nation. Caroline Kimwele, KUTV.
And back to the budget, where the budget unveiled today by CS Ukur Yatani under the Jubilee regime, which saw education, energy and infrastructure being the biggest beneficiaries of the whole budget allocations in the financial year 2022-2023. Let's get a highlight on this.
The CS National Treasury and Planning Ukur Yatani has today unveiled the 3.3 trillion shillings budget, which has seen the national government getting the biggest share of allocation, with the executive getting the bigger chunk of monies allocated. The executive has been allocated 2.01 trillion shillings. The parliament, on the other hand, will get 38.4 billion shillings, whereas the judiciary has been allocated 18.884 billion shillings. In terms of the various sectors in the budgetary allocations, the education sector, the energy infrastructure and ICT sectors have received the biggest allocation. The education sector has been allocated 544.4 billion shillings, which are aimed at ensuring success of the CBC programs and other education sector needs. Amongst these funds, the Teacher Service Commission has been allocated 294.7 billion shillings, while tertiary institutions are going to get 91.2 billion shillings. 15.8 billion will be directed towards the Higher Education Loans Board, as 64.4 billion is set aside for free day secondary education and 12 billion for free primary education. The security sector has, on the other hand, been allocated 317.8 billion shillings to support the National Police Service, Defence and the National Intelligence Service. Of the total amount, 128.4 billion shillings is set aside for defence, 46.1 billion shillings for the National Intelligence Service, and 122.2 billion shillings for police and prison services. To support the production of reliable and affordable energy, 91.5 billion shillings has been set aside, with 62.9 billion shillings meant to cater for transmission and distribution of power. With food and nutrition security being one of the big four agendas, the agricultural sector has been allocated 46.7 billion shillings to enhance food and nutrition security. 2.7 billion shillings has been set aside for subsidizing fertilizer prices to cushion farmers during the short rains from October to December this year. Mutweri Eliud for KU TV.
Thank you, Muturi, our business reporter, for that report. And with that story, we take our first break right here on KU TV Primetime News. Stay tuned. In a moment, we'll be coming back with the day's discussion on the budget. Stay tuned.
KUTV, in conjunction with Kenyatta University Funeral Home, is now offering death announcements immediately following our news bulletins at 7 p.m. At this sorrowful time, as you share in your grief, allow us to communicate your announcement of your loved one on KUTV in both Kiswahili and English. For more details, kindly inquire at the KU Funeral Home Service Desk or call 0736 928 380 or dial 020-359-9054.
Tumefanya ifahamu na tukapanda mimea ambayo ni ya korosho, naweza iona na ilianza kuzaa. Kuna mtu ulizaa kwa mwaka mmoja.
Si ya kwenda kujaribu, ni ya kwenda kupanda.
This is magic. I need that magic.
Somebody call 911. Anything for your girl, give me more.
Nasema sugri wagri, den den den.
This is magic. I need that magic.
Somebody call 911. Anything for your girl, give me more.
Nasema sugri wagri, den den den.
Unemployment has hit you hard. Your salary is meager. You decide to venture into business, but you're struggling to thrive in it. You would want to reap a big tip on how not to run into losses.
Forget the preachy business vlogs, the hyperbolic motivational speeches, and all the roads down desperation.
Hope has come with model stories from small successful entrepreneurs. We tell you these tales weekly on The Budding Entrepreneur. Join us as we help you make your trade profitable and often smile to the bank.
Kwa wengi ni taka, lakini kwake Patrick Lupalo ni njia ya kujitafutia posho ya kila siku. Kwa kutumia vifaa vya kielektroniki ambavyo vimeharibika, yeye hutengeneza taa ambazo kwa macho yetu ni ya kisasa.
Katika pilika zangu za kutembea nikapatana na mama fulani anauza mboga, but alikuwa anafunga saa 1 juu hana sufficient light. So nikamtengenezea taa, ilikuwa tu ya box ya simu. Nikamuundia taa, nikampelekea, nikamwambia hii mwangaza wewe utatumia but hautanilipa. Kitu utafanya wewe utanipatia mboga ya 10 bob.
Ungana nami Samson Jura nikikuletea makala ya Akili ni Mali ndani ya runinga ya KU.
We are going to be doing an Italian dish which is none other than chicken piccata served together with Italian pasta together with a mix of African creamy vegetables.
Today we are going to talk about line following robot.
This project we started like 2 years ago. We have been doing it for 2 years. You know, for us, we deal with software more than hardware.
And generally what I do is I measure in the hardware part of it, the connectivity, the body, how everything works.
Arduino board, we have it control, it has different wires that comes in and that gets out. We have the power, we have the ground, all those. Then here we have the wires that connect between the board, that is an Arduino board, and also connect it to the motor controller.
Lola ni programu inayokupa fursa ya kutizama video zozote pindi tu unapokuwa na nafasi. Hadithi za kukupa motisha, drama, maisha ya vyuo vikuu, teknolojia, masuala ya jamii, kuzuru maeneo tofauti, spoti, burudani na zaidi. Pata programu ya Lola sasa kwenye rununu yako kwa yote unayohitaji.
Hello everyone, this is the new chapter of Let's Be Fit. I'll be host DiCaplo. I'm here to give you various workouts. I'll be having different trainers. We'll have Zumba classes, we'll have aerobics classes, we'll have boxercise, we'll have kata box, just name. The show comes every Thursday from 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. Keep it locked. Make sure we keep fit. And that's it from me to you. Let's be fit.
Kama wewe ni mwenyeji
Weni mwenyeji. Hello. Kama we si mwenyeji. Mind your business. Kona taka ule anaichapa mpaka ilale basi haraki.
Come see America each week on VOA Connect, a 30-minute program showcasing Americans, telling America's story in their own words.
Shows right here, an event like this, that Americans can come together.
From events that affect thousands to personal stories that might never be seen, VOA Connect provides context for the American experience, focusing on compelling stories with personal narratives that inform and inspire. On VOA Connect.
Ama kweli muomba chumvi huombea chunguche, nao wasemao husema nituze na unitunze ningali hai. Ulianza kama uvumi, uvumi ukawa minong'ono, minong'ono ikawa gumzo, na sasa sio uvumi tena, ni udhamini. Mawimbi ya lugha na Spotlight, tuna koroma bila koma, katika ushirikiano kama Kiko na Digali, kukutuza na kukutunza.
Naam, nalo shirika la uchapishaji almaarufu Spotlight lina tuzo tele kwako wewe mtazamaji wa kipindi cha mawimbi ya lugha. Tazama, shiriki na ukishinda tutakutumia tuzo uliko.
Kila Jumapili saa 2 usiku, wanajopo Faridi na Fasaha watadadavua na kujibu maswali.
Wasomi ni nyinyi, wataalamu ni nyinyi, sisi tunawaelekeza.
Kumbuka, safari ni hatua, tena kikoa, nalo jungu kuu halikosi ukoko.
Today we are going to talk about line following robot.
This project we started like 2 years ago. We have been doing it for 2 years. You know, for us, we deal with software more than hardware.
And generally what I do is I major in the hardware part of it, the connectivity, the body, how everything works.
Arduino board, we have it control, it has different wires that comes in and that gets out. We have the power, we have the ground, all those. Then here we have the wires that connect between the board, that is an Arduino board, and also connect it to the motor controller.
Hands in the sky, get ready for the anthem.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, watch me. Level up, level up, level up, level up, level up.
Hold up!
My turn.
Who got the power? Cause girls like you go around with guys like me to sundown. Boot up, boot up. Rise till we fall. Beat it up like piñatas.
Welcome back to KUTV Primetime News. And now we are going on to our discussion of the day. And before that, let me remind you of our social media handles. We are at KUTV_Kenya on Twitter, KUTV Kenya on Facebook, and KUTV Kenya Live on YouTube. We are also streaming live. And now to the discussion of the day on the 2022-2023 budget. The final budget under the Jubilee regime, the final budget after 3 years of Ukur Yatani's term as the CS in the Treasury Ministry. Now, what have we seen concerning the budget as it has been? It is the final one that has been tabled. What have we seen? What have we not seen? There are concerns from Kenyans, and now to address these matters from now an intellectual point, from someone who's actually adept with matters concerning these calculations that were put across by the CS. I am joined by Catherine Asemeit, the Director of Internal Audit and Risk at the not international really, it's the ASPAC. I'd actually better be corrected on that. And now moving on to you, Catherine, you can help me to break down that because it seems to be dribbling on a different note from my tongue.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So it's ISPAC, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. So we regulate accountants. We also have a role under the Accountants Act of 2008 to advise the Minister of Finance during this period of budget development. We also have a big role towards ensuring accountability and just making sure that we work with the various organs of government in ensuring accountability and fostering transparency in utilization of the budget, both from the point of development and utilization and even afterwards, basically throughout the entire cycle.
I'm getting that you're actually involved in the proposals of the budget, which means there is not so much surprise maybe to you because maybe you have seen part of what you had advised. But now, just tell me, how have you seen the budget as from your opinion?
Okay, thank you so much. So the budget, in my opinion, I think I've seen, first of all, before I give my opinion, I've seen a lot of outcry from the youth. I've seen a lot of outcry from the wananchi saying that the cost of living, from what they see as the budget having been read out, the cost of living issue has not been addressed.
Very true.
We've also seen a lot of outcry from employees of different sectors, looking at the cost of production of items has gone up, and basically also hampering the issue of investment within the country. And I think these are issues which I think the CS has been very prudent and has come out very strongly to address immediately during his speech after he came out of Parliament. He came out and said that they have looked at the cost of living issue through the budget. And when I'm looking at that is the Jubilee government, what you've mentioned as you did the introduction is that we have the Big Four agenda. So the way the Jubilee government is looking at addressing the issue of cost of living is not directly as what the wananchi would expect at the moment, but looking at improving the other elements coming through the Big Four agenda, through the medium-term plans under the Vision 2030. So looking at improved housing, manufacturing, food security, and improved healthcare. We've also seen a lot towards improved infrastructure in the last term. So how that is going to trickle down possibly is through improving the ease of access to markets, and thereby making industries go to the various levels of our country, and having the products getting to the wananchi faster, improving the cost of fuel. So a lot of all these are coming in. So directly not going to reduce the cost of living may not be reduced directly, as we may expect from a layman angle. But through all these projects that the government has put in, including the economic stimulus program, in conjunction with the IMF, these are going to work towards improving the cost of living. I think I'll address this much more as we go through the discussions, but the budget generally, looking at it, will address the issue of cost of living. I think Kenyans may need to just be a bit more to look at it from a positive angle, because as mentioned today and as read out, it's a wait and see approach. And this also goes in, of course, with the issue of elections, looking at who are going to come in the next cycle of government and how are they going to implement that, because the budget as is not what is really going to solve our issue. There is also the issue of implementation. How are we going to lock out the pilferage from the budget that we have at the point of expenditure? Because if, again, we encourage budgeted corruption, as people have said that this is indeed budgeted corruption, then how are we going to ensure that we've put in governance structures to mitigate against pilferage and to improve the reporting and accountability? So it's a wait and see, and also it's the kind of leaders that we have in office, how they're going to make sure the implementation is done. So on paper, it is good, but the implementation of that is what we are looking forward to. And I believe there are various entities which are looking at making sure that what has been budgeted for, therefore, goes all the way to the wananchi.
And now, because you've talked on the matter of cost of living, I'm looking maybe from the ordinary mwananchi. When the budget is being read, there's usually a lot of enthusiasm that it will actually bring some sort of change to the common mwananchi. A lot of people are actually looking at their tellies and hoping like they'll hear like the price of bread has come down, something has come, as in something to like reassure the mwananchi that the government is actually thinking of them. When you look at infrastructure, yes, it's a good post coming out because we see the trickle. You can be able to explain it down. Now to the common mwananchi, how long should they wait so that they can actually feel the effect of this budget, which is good on paper? Now feeling the effect, how long should they wait? Because looking at the way it has been brought out, it has been brought out before time because of the elections, yes? And it's going to serve mwananchi like for this time, and another regime is coming through within this time. Will the mwananchi feel the effect of this budget?
Okay, within this time, I think between now and August, really, it's I can't really comment much about that in terms of that trickling down to the mwananchi because of the timing in place. But what I'd like to say is that looking at the policies that have been put in place and the budget as intended, the cost of living is going to be driven down by all these measures that have been put in place and read out in the budget. Let's take in case in point. I've mentioned about the issue of industrialization and the utilization of crude oil, and also the issue of the infrastructure and how that brings down, therefore, the cost of production. We also have the issue of the encouragement of investments around clean energy. We also have the encouragement of investments around the education sector. I think we've seen a lot of the budget allocation has been improved, over 500 billion towards the education sector. We've also seen the ICT being a big beneficiary. I think the twister and where everyone is also a bit agitated is the agricultural sector has really been almost like a loser. And tying this to the issue of drought that we have seen around the country, in the Asals region, it's a counterproductive move when you look at agriculture not really benefiting and looking at national security having such a huge budget allocation. I think we were expecting agriculture to have a huge allocation at this point in time, but that having not been factored in, I think analysts are also looking at then what was really intended in terms of how the agricultural inputs then would be manufactured, and perhaps there'll still be a benefit, but not as direct as would be expected. There's the issue of taxation. So we've seen from the budget what has been mentioned about also the reforms around the Kenya Revenue Authority being called the Kenya Revenue Service, and also the kind of measures they're going to put in place to improve the revenue collection. So that, together with the national tax policy, we're really hopeful that the national tax policy will put in measures in place that are going to improve the taxation regime towards the common mwananchi, over and above, of course, the big gainers in the economy, because we've seen people who've been exempt from taxes, we've seen entities that are coming in and are exempt, others are not. We've seen the issue of excise duty going up in different industries. Of course, those manufacturing commodities that are perhaps supposed to be discouraged, like the alcohol and cigarette, haphazard sometimes. So the issue of national tax policy will go in a long way in improvement of how improvement of the tax regime, creating stability, and also creating rates and predictability towards how tax is therefore administered to the mwananchi. And we also hope that the rates and collection of taxes to those who are a bit marginalized would again improve.
And on matters of taxes, talking about excise duty, when you talk about excise duty, it's taxing the local industries. So it's like the government is not really, no money is coming in per se, as in the matter you could actually look at the way we would actually tax something from maybe coming from the outside the country. It's something which is within the country. Do you think this is a way that is actually stifling even the local industries in the country?
Okay. On one hand, you would say that, but again, on the other hand, the introduction of that excise duty was not ill-intended. Was just looking at how, because the consumption of these particular goods that are excisable and for which tax excise duty has increased, has kept on increasing over time. We've seen the consumption of alcohol. Reports have been coming out from EABL and from other manufacturers of alcohol going up. So again, the introduction of the excise duty for such commodities has kept going up, and again, as a measure of just trying to sort of reduce the consumption, because this would not really be the basic needs of most consumers within the country. So the industry that you've mentioned, that would, in one way, it would stifle the operations of such industries. But again, on the other hand, there are other measures that have been put in place by the government to make sure that the ease of doing business by those countries, by those entities, and those industries really goes up. On the flip side, of course, we also see the ease of doing business in Kenya has improved. From the World Bank report, we saw that Kenya has been ranked number 56. That was around 2019, with the index of the ease of doing business in Kenya. Part of this, on the flip side, and the issue of taxation has really been, again, on the counterproductive measure, because as much as on one hand it is looks a bit easy to come and register and do business in Kenya, but as much as entities would want to register and do business in Kenya, those which are locally here and also those which are coming from out there, it becomes difficult, because once the entity registers, then they are again faced with these other tax obligations immediately upon registration. So we've seen MSMEs, the small and medium enterprises, around 58% of them, from the same World Bank report survey of 2016, showing that they had interest in registering and conducting business in Kenya. But again, the issue of having to register and have all these tax obligations from the beginning debars them from doing that. So the issue of taxation and the issue of ease of doing business are going hand in hand. But again, we really hope that with the tax policy development will help that, because there are industries which have come in, there are entities that have come from outside and have been allowed to come and manufacture in Kenya and have been exempt from certain taxes, which the Kenyans have complained from time to time, because we don't know how they were exempt. There's no transparency on such exemptions, maybe from different countries, and yet the locals, like what you've mentioned, have suffered from certain taxes. So the national tax policy will help to address that gap.
And looking at the budget that was presented today, it's not an ordinary budget. It's one that is coming before the elections. And usually when we head into the elections, there is a lot of skepticism among the investors concerning how the climate will be politically. Now, currently looking at the shilling, it has been on a very, very unsteady move. It's like the dollar is gaining on the shilling in a way that is concerning. When you do make your proposals, is there like a way you actually advise the Treasury to find a way of actually cushioning the shilling in a situation that we may have maybe a prolonged election period? As in, now we are going into maybe there'll be a runoff, maybe there'll be something else coming. And when all this is happening, the economic climate is actually in a place where it's like everybody's look and see what will happen now. Is there like a proposal you do make to so that they can be able to cushion us in case we do go into some uncertain times ahead?
Yes, I think that's really good, and I'm happy about. I think this is a good time for the budget to be read. I think it's coming before the election, and it came in force right before the recess of Parliament. It came at a good time because looking at our usual cycle of June, that would not have been possible, because we'd have just few months to the election, and then there would really be no much time for even the aspirants to align their manifestos, to align their policies together with the budget priorities that have been read. So it's a good time. The issue of the volatility of the shilling the volatility has been there. It's really not now alone that we are witnessing this. And one thing I can give credit to the Central Bank of Kenya and the Monetary Policy Committee, which has been meeting from time to time and has the role of cushioning the shilling and using, I think there are different methods around that, and also putting in place the reserves. I think this has happened and has cushioned the shilling from this kind of volatilities. So what you mentioned about our role, yes, we have a team which works on that. We have a team which is constantly monitoring, a team of economists which works with the central bank and the national treasury on such matters.
And it will be very dangerous for me not to ask this question concerning fuel prices. It has been a concern not only this year, but over years we've been having issues with the fuel situation in the country. Now, you're not being held by any, on your opinion, don't you think it's about time we tried the angle of allowing the forces of supply and demand to play out in the fuel industry?
Wow. It's good you've said it's my opinion, and I thank you for that. I think that would be catastrophic. If you allow that, that would be really catastrophic, because when you look at global fuel prices, global fuel prices are determined by the same market forces of demand and supply. And we've seen how haphazard that has been. When there's any shifts, as you've seen the issue of COVID-19 and the current war, the prices have been very haphazard.
Yes.
So locally, the regulation of prices is a good move, and that also helps together with the issue of the fuel subsidy that we have as a country. Because were it not for the subsidy, then prices of fuel would be around 155 for petrol, maybe 148 for fuel, for diesel. But again, these have been subsidized greatly to around 115 or something. So I would really support the issue of the regulation of fuel prices as contained in the EPRA regulations 2010, because that I think that has gone a long way in ensuring that as an economy we've remained sustainable, and we've been able to control these fuel prices, because Kenyans would not have afforded that. So if we leave the laws of demand and supply, you know how that would work. For now, it may go down, but you don't know about tomorrow. Anything else can come up, and as a country, we can't manage that.
The uncertainty.
Yes.
And don't you think it's about time we, like, even in our budget, we actually do create a portion maybe for actually trying and bring up maybe alternative sources of energy? Because I believe our dependence on fuel is actually part of the reason we're actually in this situation. Because when the fuel prices go up, we are in a situation. What about alternative sources of energy? Do you think it's about time the budget thought about investing in such sources to find an alternative?
Yes, I think that's really critical. And I'm seeing what the budget is looking at, though not directly mentioning the issue of alternative sources of energy. First of all, maybe what are these alternative sources of energy? We have the hydropower, we have geothermal, we have the wind energy.
We have solar.
We have gas. So all these have been encouraged through the issue of innovation. I think the budget has encouraged the issue of investing in Kenya, first of all, and investing in certain sectors. We have seen an increment in the allocation towards manufacturing sectors. So if an entity or an industry wants to venture into that, I think what the government would look at then is to subsidize. If you're going to utilize alternative sources of energy. We've seen a bit of increment of investments around the solar energy and access of that to the wananchi. Over time, we've seen entities which are coming in, even allowing the common wananchi to pay for solar usage via phone, maybe via M-Pesa, perhaps even as little as 10 shillings. Such investments have been encouraged to come into the country to spur economic growth and also to encourage local innovations to come up. We've seen young people creating new innovations around the alternative sources of energy. I think the only problem is then how can this be commercialized and make it to be at least at a larger scale? How can we encourage that kind of innovation and make it commercialized and more sustainable? So the Ministry of Industrialization had taken this up a while back. There was a time I had seen there were several discussions around improvements of innovative ideas from the youth and how this can be commercialized for the country. So the budget at large has factored this in. I think the only issue which we are looking at seeing then is the incentive for people doing that, using alternative sources of energy.
And when you talk about innovation, I would be like, a lot of innovation does come from institutions like the Kenyatta University, because students are here. Without knowledge, innovation would kind of be impossible, because you need to know something. Now, looking at the education budget, the allocation to the education sector was 544.4 billion. Now, of this, 18% is the only amount that was allocated to higher institutes like universities and so forth. The other chunk, around 82%, is on mainly CBC. The CBC is coming into the higher education stratum. Do you think there is some not proper consideration concerning the higher institutions, because if you were to actually even peruse over the history, there is a concern about the stability of higher institutions. There are many of them are in sort of financial issues, and the amount allocated is seemingly quite meager. Concerning that the problem is actually here. Now, it's good that we're actually propelling the CBC, but don't you think there is a concern there? Because I have even an issue from comrades. They're saying 15.8 billion is the only amount that was allocated to help, and there has been a constraint on the amount of students who are actually accessing help. Do you think this disparity can be sorted in one way or another, maybe in your future proposals even to the Treasury Ministry?
Yes, yes. I think I totally agree with you. And when I saw that also, I saw that there was not a very good alignment between the allocation towards the tertiary institutions and the CBC. And I think what I'd like to perhaps maybe to encourage, without losing the earlier discussion which you had mentioned, innovation is key. And without being discouraged about the kind of allocation we have as a university, then the youth should still continue and do the innovation. We've seen the increment of funding towards certain projects by the youth. I think I would like to encourage the youth, because the budget is already out, and even if we are disgruntled as the comrades, it's already out, and we have to work within our means. So first of all, is that should not discourage innovation at all, because youth can still access funding. Youth can still access funding from the government and from other lenders within the country. I think we've seen an increment of youth, not really youth, I think youth have laid back a bit, but of small and medium enterprises seeking funding and getting that. When we talk about the issue of financial inclusion, that looking specifically at lending and the issue of digital lending for the youth has improved. The issue of mobile money, you've seen a lot of youth having the mobile apps and borrowing money from different entities. The only thing is that they're doing it the wrong way. But if they can access this funding and utilize that for simple innovations, and then the other thing would be publicity of those innovations so that they can attract funding maybe from venture capitalists and all that, that would also help. But over and above that, then the issue of budget at hand, we are going to make proposals on that, as you've mentioned. But I think the allocation as given towards the distribution towards what has been given from the 500B is not really as proportionate as would have been expected.
Very true. Yeah, and concerning the matter that you just said, I think next time we can also invite you to come and show us how we can use these mobile apps accordingly, so that we don't find ourselves in the situation that the country is in. Because looking on the fiscal consolidation, there is the issue of debt. Even the common one, which is kind of agitated because the debt situation in the country is something that is worrying. And looking at how we are handling the case, because the KRA is tasked with trying and finding some revenue to actually foot this budget. And if it will not be able, chances are we may move into another pocket somewhere, which will cost us, yet we're still being costed right now. What's your thoughts on the situation of our debt crisis?
Okay, I think the public debt issue is an outcry where everyone really, there is a big outcry and everyone has really complained about it, not only today during the budget reading, but even before then. As an institute, we've been involved in discussions around public debt and accountability. I think we've been involved around the issue of the debt ceiling, discussions around that. What I'd just like to mention also is there are discussions, of course, towards raising the debt ceiling and moving away from the fixed ceiling of 12 million to just making it a nominal figure, which would a nominal figure to the GDP. But again, that would be almost counterproductive because we would then again encourage more, more,
like eating yourself.
Exactly. So the 862 deficit, I think we wait and see how the government is going to handle that. I would not like to comment much on the public debt outcry, but linking it to what you've mentioned about the debt by the youth, that's a discussion we need to have on financial inclusion and how youth can benefit and make sure that they benefit from the debt. Debt is not bad. Even the public debt is not bad. It's not bad for the government to borrow. It's really not bad. The problem is how the funding which has been brought in is utilized and the pilferage within the systems. The problem is what I mentioned at the beginning, the lack of accountability within the systems, such that the money comes in and is not fully utilized for these projects. So the debt is not bad. I think we just have to make sure that then transparency is there so that Mwananchi would be able to know how much has been borrowed, what has been utilized, and how. So if we have this report publicized and being transparent for everyone to see, this will improve even the uptake, and will also improve the perception of how people view the issue of public debt. Because maybe all is not lost. Perhaps it's how can everybody get their hands on this information, not only to be left to professionals like ourselves, but having it accessible and easy to read for everyone down in the country.
Very much so. Thank you, Catherine, for making time to actually be with us here on KUTV.
Thank you.
We hope we can actually access you for another moment when you need enlightenment on matters such of this nature, even on financial discipline and the matters of such, because it is key that we actually need them.
Thank you.
You have heard it right here on KUTV Prime. We are joined by Catherine Asemeit, the Director of Internal Audit and Risk at the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. Just got it right. And we appreciate the knowledge that we have been able to get from her. And now we take another short break on KUTV Primetime News. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment. We now sail into the world of sports, where Team Kenya has been urged to take their training seriously ahead of the 24th Summer Deaf Olympics in Caxias do Sul, Brazil. Preparations are underway at Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani in Nairobi for the next 23 days, after which the squad will be whittled down to 2 hours. Now, our sports reporter Stanley Nyaringita with the full details.
With less than a month to the 24th Summer Deaf Olympics in Caxias do Sul, Brazil, Team Kenya is putting its house in order. The contingent, comprising of athletics, football, handball, basketball and golf athletes, was taken through the journey of handling successes and failures, which will be the two outcomes during their participation during the 15-day bonanza starting this May.
We are very, very proud as a National Olympic Committee to be in Kenyatta University Ruiru campus, where we brought close to 200 youngsters from all our member federations. This is a 14-day youth camp. The idea is to start training our youngsters with a big target of Dakar 2026 Youth Olympics. For a long time as a country, we've expected our teams to do very well with very, very short-term goals and very, very short-term preparation.
At the same time, the players have been challenged to work hard and maintain discipline to surpass the 16 medals, including 5 gold, 5 silver and 6 bronze, the country registered in the last edition of the Global Games in Turkey in 2017.
I'm so happy and glad to be here. I've met so many people, some cyclists. I know how to cycle now. One thing that I can say is that I want to first of all say thank you to the committee members for putting up this youth camp. It is such an opportunity for us. The things that we were not able to do back at our places, we are able to do them now. And we're even getting the energy to want to go to the Youth Olympics.
The players are set to go through a mental awareness session on Friday to be conducted by the Chiromo Hospital Group. Team Kenya will be in training at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, for 23 days, after which the squad will be whittled down to 136, who will travel to Brazil. Stanley Nyaringita, KUTV Sports.
And on to the English Premier League, where Chelsea's ambition of clinching a back-to-back UEFA Champions League title were momentarily denied after they succumbed